We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, where today I'm going to break down why Georgia football recruiting is about to go nuclear over the next couple of months and lay the foundation for another national championship or two. Before we get there, guys, if you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe to the channel right now. All you diehard Georgia fans, you don't want to miss any of our content because this channel, everything that we do here on the Glory UGA podcast is designed for you guys. So subscribe, like, comment, all that's greatly appreciated. And of course, for full episodes of our show, check out the Glory UGA podcast wherever you get your pods, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Check that stuff out. But all right, guys, let's dive in. Unless you spent last week, I don't know, trekking around in the remote mountains of Afghanistan, I guess, you know by now that number one quarterback Jared Curtis committed to Georgia last Monday. And we broke that down for you here on this channel, I think in 3 different episodes. So if you haven't checked those out, go check those out, guys. We covered that from a couple different angles for you guys. So to say that I'm excited about the Jared Curtis commitment, Georgia landing the number one quarterback in the country after just narrowly missing on quarterbacks of that caliber in recent classes. To say that I'm excited about that would certainly be a bit of an understatement, shall we say. But here's the thing, guys. As great as it was to land the number one quarterback, as excited as I am about Jared Curtis, the reality is Georgia football recruiting in this 2026 cycle is just getting started. And I know it is. It's hard to imagine how you go and you one up landing the number one quarterback in the country. That's tough to do, right? But the Dogs are poised to do exactly that, guys, as early as, I don't know, like a day and a half from now. I'm recording this on Sunday evening. On Tuesday, the number one overall prospect in the entire country, offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell, is set to publicly commit. And yeah, you guessed it, the Dogs are right in the thick of Cantwell's recruitment. In fact, not that this is exactly going out on a limb, not that I'm the first person to say this, but as I record this right now, again on Sunday evening, I'm 100% going to sit here right now and say with a great degree of confidence that I believe Jackson Cantwell is going to commit to the G on Tuesday. Why? You guys know I say this all the time, just an obligatory disclaimer here. I'm not a guy that covers recruiting like professionally. I don't call these guys. I don't have relationships with them directly. But I have been following this for a long, long time. I've been doing this podcast for going on 11 years now. I've been following recruiting for much longer than that. I'm a diehard, just like you guys are. That's what we do here. And so as I followed this stuff for years, and like multiple decades, let's just leave it at that. But as I followed it for that long, you learn what to look for in the recruitment. Like you learn to kind of read between the lines, read the tea leaves, and you start to pick up on things that seem to be leading in one direction or another. Now, can guys throw you for a loop every now and then? Yeah, of course. There's always surprises out there. There's some things you don't see coming. Not as much nowadays, honestly, especially with how NIL's factored in things. But there's a number of things that I look for when I'm trying to predict where a guy is going to commit. And for a long time, it's always been with me. This is not just me. I mean, this is an industry-wide thing. If you follow recruiting, you know this. The number one rule in recruiting in terms of trying to predict where guys are going to go is follow the visits. That's number one. You've got to follow the visits. If the guy's not visiting your campus, if he's not visiting your school, you probably don't have a chance. Now, just because he's visiting doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to come to Georgia or he can go wherever, because these guys do visit multiple places. They have their official visits, they have unofficial visits, they go camp, they do all that stuff, junior days, all that kind of stuff. But if you follow the visits with Jackson Cantwell, he has visited Georgia more than anywhere else. In fact, he hadn't come to Georgia up until this weekend. So by the way, he was in Athens this weekend, the final weekend prior to his commitment. Usually a really strong sign, right? If you know you're committing in like a couple of days, but then you come to this one school, one final time, usually a pretty strong sign of where you're going. But he didn't visit Georgia for months during the early parts of this year. Why? Well, he openly said, I've seen Georgia so much. I've been there so many times. I can't imagine what they could possibly show me that I haven't already seen. So I just kind of want to go see other places, make sure I'm making the right decision, all those kind of things. So he's visited Georgia as much, if not more, if you listen to his words, more than he's visited anywhere else. Again, most recently, as of like right now. I think their parents actually, his family left a little bit earlier today. But for all the visits, he's come to Georgia a ton. That's a strong sign. Number two, let's go back a couple of weeks. He was originally slated to go public with his commitment back on April 30th, about 2 weeks ago. But we got word just a couple of days prior to that he was pushing that commitment back. I took that as a very strong sign for Georgia's chances to land the number one offensive tackle in the country. By the way, guys, if you would have asked me this question like 2 or 3 months ago, I would have said, yeah, we're probably not going to get him. I felt pretty good about Jared Curtis. I didn't think that we were going to be able to get the number one quarterback and the number one offensive tackle in this age of NIL, right? Where you got to pony up. And I should know if we'd be able to afford it, quite honestly. So I would have told you 2 months ago, yeah, we're probably not going to get this guy. Like, we're in it. We're taking our swing, but I'm not going to hold my breath on this one. But that changed. That really started to change for me about 2 weeks ago when he did push back that initial commitment date. Why did that change things for me? Well, at the time, coming into that commitment, all the momentum seemed to be on the Oregon side of things. So here's another commitment, just like with the Curtis commitment. It's Georgia, it's Oregon at the top there. Miami's really trying to get involved here. They're throwing a lot of money. The reports out this weekend. I think it was On3 reported this. Forget who it was exactly. So if I got that wrong, I'm sorry. But one of those sites out there reported that Miami right now, late in this process, right before his commitment, you know what schools do? They come with the bag very late, right? Try to sway you, try to swing your commitment. And allegedly, the number that's being thrown out right now is like $2 million up front. That's what they're offering right now. And as far as I know, that's more money that I don't know exactly what Georgia's money is. Obviously, we're financially competitive, just like with Curtis. Like, we're financially competitive. Could Curtis have gotten more money somewhere else? Reports coming out last week said yes, absolutely. But the way we structure things and the way we work things, if you come and you earn the job, then you're gonna get your payday. It's gonna come, right? And we're also gonna develop you. Bobo put Stafford in the league, all that kind of stuff, right? Whether you like Bobo or not, whatever. But it looks like Miami's trying to get in there, but he was leaning Oregon. That's what the word was among the professional recruiting writers who follow these things for a living, who put RPM, the recruiting prediction machines and crystal balls in there. So when he pushed the commitment back, what does that tell me? Well, if you were leaning Oregon prior to the commitment, at least reportedly leaning Oregon, and you decide to push the commitment back, I've seen this a number of times in the past, guys. Again, follow this for a long time. When you see things like that happen, what that usually means is the school that was like the runner-up going into your commitment, was like just behind, they've given you a reason. They've gotten you to push your commitment off because they want you to give them one final chance. They want to have one final swing to kind of sway your opinion. So I took that as a strong sign. I thought if he went public back on April 30th, he was probably going to go to Oregon. But now he's delaying the decision. I think that's better for Georgia. And especially considering that when he set his final visits after that, after pushing that date back, we were going to get that final visit just the weekend prior, a couple of days prior to him actually going public. I guess he could push to coming back again. There are no signs of that happening, though. So that is a huge part of why I'm predicting that we will land Jackson Cantwell on Tuesday. And then number three, sometimes these things matter, sometimes they don't. But Jared Curtis, the number one quarterback who did just commit to Georgia on Monday, about a week ago now, he also made it to town. So he's a Nashville kid, got in town on Saturday. And look, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to lock down Cantwell just because Jared Curtis came to town, the cavalry came to town. Not necessarily, but it's a pretty strong sign in terms of like where we are in Cantwell's recruitment, when the number one quarterback feels like it's not a waste of his time to come to Athens, right? If he felt like we weren't going to land him, he probably wouldn't have come, right? Something tells me a pretty strong inkling that we are going to that we are in the leadership position here, and the leader of the clubhouse, I guess I would say, for Cantwell. That's why he made this trip, kind of come back down to Athens, close the door on that. So that's a solid sign there as well. And then finally, all the recruiting writers, again, I'm not a professional recruiting writer. I don't do that. I just run this podcast. But all the recruiting writers that I do trust, the Steve Wiltfongs of the world, like those kind of guys, the Chad Simmons of the world, they are all leading Georgia right now, and heavily, like almost to a man. I think if you look at the RPM, the recruiting prediction machine on On3 right now, It's like 75% of those predictions are for Georgia. All the ones coming in recently. That's another strong sign too. What are all the predictions saying as they come in right now, right ahead of the commitment, right? I don't care what the prediction was like 4 months ago, because again, 4 months ago, I would have predicted Oregon, right? But all of those recruiting writers are coming in, putting their predictions in right now, just a couple of days or so before the decision. What are they saying? And they're all almost to a man saying Georgia. So again, I'm not going against the tide on this one. I'm not going out on a limb. I'm not planting my flag saying, oh, you guys are wrong. He's coming to Georgia. No, that's not what I'm saying here. But I am just going to kind of go along with the flow here. And based off what I've seen, all those reasons I just laid out there, I do believe that it just seems like a big open secret right now that the Georgia Bulldogs are going to land both the number one quarterback in the country and the number one offensive tackle in all of America in the same class. And that's arguably, going back to what I said at the outset, laying the foundation for a future national championship run. When you land the number one quarterback and the number one offensive tackle in the same class, that's a pretty strong 1-2 punch, guys, because those are arguably, and I would make the argument, the two most important positions on any football team. On any football team. And I had a couple of people reach out when I was talking about my first video I did on Jared Curtis, kind of predicting that he was going to come to Georgia. I think a week ago today is when I recorded that episode. Some people were like, yeah, man, that'd be huge, but like it's not even close to as big as Jackson Cantwell. And I respect and disagree. I do think quarterback is the most important position on the field. But hey, you know what? It's a moot point if you land both of them. If you land both of them, who cares? You got them both, right? There's no need to even argue about it. So that is a great place to start. And if the dog stopped right there, if we just said, all right, throw our hands up, like we're good. We're just going to fill that with some, like, some average guys, some decent players. We're good. We got our top two guys. If we just stop there, yeah, it still put us in contention to have one of the best classes in the entire country. But that's the thing, guys. Kirby Smart and company, they're not stopping there. You know how this deal goes, right? Kirby Smart just doesn't ever sleep. He never stops. He's the ultimate grinder in really all aspects of the job, but certainly on the recruiting trail. In fact, as of about an hour ago, Jordan Smith from Houston County here in the state of Georgia, the number 75 player overall in the country, just committed to Georgia. Really like this kid. I know he's going to get lost in the shuffle of Jared Curtis and Jackson Cantwell. And I get that, right? Understandably so. We're talking about the number one quarterback, the number one overall player in the country in Jackson Cantwell. But Jordan Smith can play, guys. Like, this is a huge addition to this class that's not going to get the love that I think it warrants because of the timing of the commitment, like sandwich between Curtis and Cantwell. But this guy, I love his game, man. Rangy, physical, has some explosiveness to his game. He's a really, really good athlete. In fact, I watch the highlights, right? Huddle, pull up the highlights, you can watch those. But I love it when I actually get to watch like full games of players, and that you can't always make that happen for all these guys. But, living here in Athens, fortunately, I did have a chance. I wouldn't normally have been able to watch this kid play in person because it's Houston County. But he actually was on the Corky Go Kickoff Classic. Watched that game, looked good in that game. He played about 2 miles down the road from me at Clark Central High School in the playoffs earlier, I guess, back at the end of 2024. The dude ran 2 kickoffs back for touchdowns in that game. He was clearly the best player on that field all game long. 0 questions asked, breaking up a ton of passes, breaking people in half. And that's what I love about this guy. I think he's the total package of safety. I think the closest comp, because I always get asked, like, who would you compare him to? In terms of Georgia players in recent years, maybe the Kirby Smart era, I would say Lewis Cine is probably the closest comp for me. And I say that just physically. He's, 6'2", about 200 pounds, and he looks thick out there, kind of like Lewis Cine. But looks can be deceiving because this guy will absolutely strike you just like Lewis Cine would back in the day. Don't let those looks deceive you. I know he's thin, but the guy comes up. They play him as like a box safety sometimes. He'll play the deep middle sometimes. They actually line him up. I've seen him line up at corner at times, and he functions very effectively out there. I think he got very strong cover skills for a safety. Love to see that. But again, his ability to come up and strike you, it's impressive, man. That combination of those cover skills, the athleticism, the range that he has back there playing deep middle, and also being able to come and play box safety. You can do a lot of different things with a player like that. And just like Lewis Cine, let's think about what did Lewis Cine help us do? Oh yeah, that's right. He helped us win a national championship. So I'm not going to say he's going to be as good as Lewis Cine. Lewis Cine was a first-round draft pick. You never know these things, but just like Lewis Cine, I do think that Jordan Smith is the type of player, the caliber athlete, and honestly, just the type of guy that we look for in the secondary at that position. He's a Kirby Smart safety. If you know what if you know, you know, right? Kirby Smart wants those guys that are tough, physical, gritty, but good athletes, can cover, can play a multitude of roles for Georgia in the back end. And so, just like Lewis Seen, I do think he's that kind of player, that type of player that can help Georgia win a national championship in the future. But even with that commitment, we're still just scratching the surface of what Georgia is going to do in this 2026 recruiting class. So let's look ahead to the rest of the summer, guys. The summer has become a really big time of recruiting. Back in the day, it wasn't as big because guys couldn't take official visits in the summer. That's changed a couple years back. It used to be like maybe in season, towards the end of the season, National Signing Day, the early National Signing Day period. The old signing day is just it's a relic, man. I have a soft spot for it in my heart. The Blind Pig, you guys know, you know, but that's no more, right? So everything's been accelerated in recruiting these days. The top guys used to never commit in the summer. It was very, very rare. Maybe the quarterback, because you want that guy to commit early, be the leader of the class, and you build everything else around him, like he's the draw for the rest of the class. But the other top guys, I mean, it was December, February, the old school National Signing Day before those guys committed. That's not really happening as much anymore. For some of the guys, sure, but more and more, the top players in the country are committing in the summer. So let's look ahead to the rest of the summer and see what Georgia has on tap, and why I say that it's not just Jackson Cantwell, but the totality of what's going to happen moving forward with this recruiting class for Georgia, where this program is about to go nuclear on the recruiting front. So I got to start with Tyler Atkinson from Grayson High School, my old neck of the woods, Gwinnett County, back in the day. Didn't go to Grayson, but played Grayson once upon a time. They were actually played them in Little League. They weren't playing the highest classification when I was actually in high school. That's how long ago. That's how old I am, guys. But Tyler Atkinson, number 8 player overall in the country, number 1 inside linebacker, 6'2", 205. For a long time, I did think that Georgia was the leader in the clubhouse. I didn't think that we were going to land Jackson Cantwell. So I was like, yeah, we're going to have that money. Yeah, we'll land Curtis. We can also use some money to land Tyler Atkinson. Well, now you land both those guys. Well, how much money do you have left to go around? And Ohio State, as of recently, has been making a really strong push here. So you can't count the Buckeyes out. I do think that our depth at inside linebacker is probably hurting us some here because we're just loaded, guys. I did a video during spring practice. You should go back and check. I think it still checks out, still relevant. Talking about how I think that Georgia's inside linebacker room is arguably the most talented position unit, not just on Georgia's football team. I think it's clearly the most talented position unit on our team, but maybe the most talented unit in like all of college football. If you look at just the totality of talent that we have stacked in that room, I mean, you're talking about guys like C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson. Those are just the headliners. I think Chris Cole's a freaking monster. Justin Williams, Zayden Walker. I mean, guys, we are loaded in that room, 100% loaded. So I do think that hurts us some when you have a guy like Tyler Atkinson, when you're that highly recruited, that probably wants to come in and play right away. And when you have the depth that we have in that room, it's just harder. It's harder for him to come in and play right away. So you don't know. You don't know if that's something that's important to him. You never really know. And at some point, though, going back to what I was alluding to, you have to make business decisions, right? You don't have an infinite amount of money. The house settlement's going to kick in here sooner rather than later. Hasn't officially right now, so I think we're trying to take advantage of this window what we have, like with all this NIL money that we built up, this war chest that we have with our collective before the house settlement kicks in. So maybe the timing is right, and we still have enough money to spend on Tyler Atkinson, potentially, maybe. But I just don't know. I don't know what the financial situation is and the house settlement and all that pending. There's a lot kind of up in the air there. But regardless, we are still right there at the top for Tyler Atkinson. Hey, look, guys, although our depth, I do think, could be a deterrent potentially, depending on how he approaches his recruitment and what's important and what are his priorities, our inside linebacker legacy speaks for itself. So if what's most important to you is getting developed and getting drafted in the first round, going to the league, being a Buckus Award winner, right? Like we had 3 of them in the Kirby Smart era. It'd be hard to beat Georgia, right? All the guys that were put in the league, put in the first round, Buckus Award winners year after year after year after year, and it doesn't really show any signs of slowing down. Glenn Schumann's not only a recruiting machine, he's a coaching machine, developing machine. He's just a straight-up machine. That's what Glenn Schumann is. So that speaks for itself, and that gives me cause for encouragement still at this point in his recruitment. But I do think ultimately it's going to come down to what matters most to him. And without knowing the kid, I don't know. Is it early playing time? Is it money, like upfront money with the house settlement coming in? Does he want to make bank right now before the house settlement kicks in and kind of potentially cuts in some of those earnings at the college level? I don't know. So we'll see it play out. But at the very least, we are at the top of this recruitment. We're right there with Ohio State. We'll see what happens, but we have a very legitimate shot to land the number 1 inside linebacker in the country. And then it's going to tight end, guys. Let's go to the opposite side here. There are two five-star tight ends that I think Georgia could land. All right, actually, I feel pretty strongly about this. We won't land both of them, but I think that we will land one of them, and that's Mark Bowman out of Mater Dei out in California. The same what Nate Frazier went to. So we've got a little bit of pipeline there, potentially. Fingers crossed, hopefully. And Caden Prothro from Bowden here in the state of Georgia. Let's start with Bowman. Bowman is a five-star. They're both five-stars. Five-star, number 22 player overall in the country, number 2 tight end nationally, 6'4", 230, Mater Dei, as I mentioned. Here's what I would say about Bowman. First off, I love this guy. I'm borderline obsessed with him. I think he's. I hate the phrase "can't miss." I hate it because I don't like to speak in absolutes. But I think this guy, at the least, is going to be a very good tight end at the college level. The floor is extremely high. I think the ceiling is also extremely high. I know this is high praise and maybe even blasphemy, potentially. I don't know, maybe. But he's the closest I have seen coming out of high school to Brock Bowers since Brock Bowers. I know that wasn't all that long ago. And I'm not telling you he's Brock Bowers. Brock's a unicorn, Brock's a free. But I compare him to Brock Bowers because I see a lot of Brock's game in his game. Even just the way he runs, the way he moves, he's a guy like Brock that is a ferocious player. Like tenacity is probably the first one that comes to mind for me when I think about what Mark Bowman is as a football player. Ferocious, tenacious, those are the words coming to mind. Breaking tackles, running through people, the contact balance, ability to take a hit but stay on your feet. You pair that with elite athleticism and ball catching ability in that frame, a 6'4", 230 frame, that's why you have a five-star in your hands. That's what we're talking about here. And I know this might, if what I've already said wasn't blasphemous, this might be. Brock Bowers is one of my two favorite players ever at the University of Georgia. Love Brock, a huge, massive Brock guy. But coming out of high school, Brock got better at this as his college career went on. He got better as a blocker. Coming out of high school, Mark Bowman's a better blocker, a more technically sound blocker than Brock Bowers was coming out of high school, right? Now, Brock is a different level pass catcher. Well, I think Bowman's pretty strong in that regard, too, in terms of athleticism, catching ability, breaking tackles, contact balance, all that stuff. But his blocking ability might set him apart a little bit. He's a very good inline blocker. And you don't always see that with these tight ends coming out of high school. A lot of times they're just out there, freak athletes who go out there and they catch all the balls and they score a lot of touchdowns, right? But blocking is like, it's going to be a work in progress. They're going to have to develop as a blocker. I mean, yeah, he's got some work to still do to develop, get a little bigger and stronger. But he is a very proficient inline blocker already. I mean, guys, and we're not talking about him playing a small little private school. Like he's playing at Mater Dei. That's big time competition they're playing against out there in California. So I love Mark Bowman, number 2 tight end in the country. It's hard for me to imagine there's a better tight end in the country. Honestly, like okay, maybe we'll see. But if we don't land Bowman, because that's a haul, California, right? Well, he was also down visiting as well this weekend, by the way. That helps. But if we don't land him, Caden Prothro from Georgia kid, number 30 prospect nationally, 5-star guy, number 3 tight end in the country. So number 2 or number 3 tight end. A little bit of a different player. 6'7", 210, big-time basketball player. Just a freak athlete. Bowman's a really, really, really good athlete. Prothro's a different level athlete. Like the name to his game is athleticism. But I would say he's not as much of a tight end right now. Like blocking, you don't even see it on his highlights. He just doesn't. He plays receiver more or less right now, coming out of high school. Kind of like Elias Williams that came out of high school a year ago at Camden County. But man, the athleticism in that frame, he's almost a jumbo wide receiver right now, 6'7", 210. That's really what he is. And the speed is ridiculous at that size. A lot of times the taller wide receivers, like 6'7", you don't really pair the size and speed combination as much. But this guy, yes. I mean, I don't have a 40-yard dash time. I don't know. But, man, that dude can straight up fly. Now, that's not the highest level competition down there, but he's a freakish athlete that has an extraordinarily high ceiling. Will he play receiver, play tight end? He's projected as a tight end. He'll have to gain some weight there. I would say his ceiling is probably a little higher than Bowman's, but Bowman's floor is probably higher than Prothro's. I'd be happy with either one of those guys. We're not going to get both of them, but I feel very strong that we're going to land at least one of those guys, and it's hard to go wrong with either one of them. Then you have a running back, all right? We got 2 big-time running backs. I think I call them 2 5-stars, all right? We'll talk about why one of them might not be a full-on 5-star right now. But Derek Cooper and Savion Hyder, these are 2 ridiculously talented running backs that we are heavily in the mix for. So let's start with Cooper. Cooper is right now ranked as the number 3 running back in the country according to On3 industry rankings. However, there's a little caveat here. He's the number 3 running back in the country according to On3 industry rankings, like combining all four the major recruiting services out there. You got ESPN, you got Rivals, you got 247, you got On3, right? But 2 of those 4 services, half of them have him rated as the number 1 running back in the country. ESPN and Rivals have him as the number 1 in the country, and 3 of the 4 have him inside the top 2. The outlier right now is On3 for individual rankings. They have him like he's the number 120 something player in the country, so that's dragging his industry ranking down a little bit. I think that will be corrected here sooner rather than later when they update their rankings, probably after the summer. But this guy, I think, is one of the better running backs in the entire country. This guy is legit, man. He's 6'1", 210 pounds, out of Fort Lauderdale, Chaminade, Madonna, big-time high school down there. And here's the thing with Cooper. He was a Georgia commit back about a year ago. He committed back June 6th, 2024. I remember this. It was weird, man. He committed back on June 6th of last summer, and then 4 days later, decommitted from Georgia. It was a weird thing. You see the commitments, but not like that quickly after your commitment. So a little strange there, but he's still very much involved with Georgia. So we're still, just like with Curtis, some people were skeptical that we would land Curtis because Curtis was once upon a time committed to Georgia, then decommitted back in October. And a lot of people were saying, well, he decommitted for a reason. I looked at it glass half full, a little bit differently, different perspective, saying, well, he committed to Georgia for a reason, and that reason is still there. While some people looked at it as well, he decommitted for a reason. There's a reason he didn't want to come to Georgia. I know some people look at it like that with Cooper. Again, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And he's still allowing us to recruit him the same way that Jared Curtis did. He still has an official visit planned for Georgia this summer. June 13th is what it's on the books for right now. But it's going to be tough, man, because this guy is a legit, incredible running back. You got Miami. You know how much money they got. They'll throw around all that cash, their NIL stuff. And you got Florida State. You got Penn State. You got Ohio State. So you got some heavy hitters when it comes to football recruiting that are involved in this recruitment. So I don't know if we'll land him. Hey, only one of those schools can say that they once had him on their commit list, and that is University of Georgia. So we got that going for us. He will make an official visit this summer. So, yeah, right now, if I had to project, I think that we'd probably get Cooper back in the fold. We'll see. I don't feel super confident in that. You just never know. It's a lot of big-time players out there. You see how the money thing, how the money factors into this. But that's a guy that Georgia very much has a chance to land. It could potentially be the number one running back in the country. And if we don't land Cooper, you have Savion Hyder out there as well, who's from the state of Virginia. He is the number 1 running back according to On3 industry rankings, number 11 overall in the country. He also has an official visit set to Georgia this summer. The week prior to Cooper, he'll be on campus on June 6th. And he's been to Georgia a ton. So I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. Follow the visit. He camped last summer here. He came to the Tennessee game last year. So did Cooper, by the way. He came to our junior day back in early February. He's taken at least 4 visits that I know of that are public, but you never know. Some of these like quieter visits they take behind the scenes you don't know there. He has released his Final Four, and Georgia is among those Final Four schools. It's Georgia, it's Michigan, it's Tennessee, it's Ohio State. So again, I can't tell you that we're going to land Hyder. I think there's a lot left to determine here. I think he probably doesn't know right now. But I do feel there's a very strong chance that we will land one of those 2 5-star running backs, either Derek Cooper or Savion Hyder. And then the final guy I'm going to mention here is a guy that's not ranked as highly as some of these other players that I've mentioned so far in today's show. But he's a guy that I absolutely love. And I think that he's going to continue to fly up the rings. I think he's going to have a big senior season. I've seen this guy in person a couple of times, and I'm telling you, the dude is a straight-up monster, and that is Kamari Brooks from North Oconee High School. So, again, I live in Athens. Clark Central's just a couple of miles away from me. Clark Central played at North Oconee this year, but I saw that game, and this dude was probably the best player on the field that night. I mean, he's unbelievable, man. 6'3", 230, plays both ways, plays tight end, plays edge rusher for them. He's only ranked 106 nationally right now. But I don't really care about that, guys. I know that people look at the star rankings, and the star rankings usually get it right. More often than not, they're pretty strong in terms of their predictive value, usually, but not always, right? I think this guy has 5-star tools. I like to watch tape myself. If I can, I like to watch him in person and make up my own mind. And I will admit, I will allow that he has some room to grow as a technician. I think that if there's a knock on him, it's that. But You can figure that stuff out when you get to college, guys. That's why our coaches get paid $1 million plus a year to teach you those things. What they can't teach you is explosiveness and athleticism and all of that stuff that comes along with just being you, right? That's where Kamari Brooks is elite. He's got good tools, by the way, regardless, I mean, he's got good technique. It's just I think he's got room to grow there. But physically, the tools, he's got 5-star tools, man. 100%. I think, and it's, again, I say this as someone who's seen him in person, not just watching highlights. The highlights are great, but if you get to watch him in person, I encourage you to do that. I think he is Georgia's next great edge rusher. Okay. I think we have some guys on our team that could be really great edge rushers for us. Absolutely, I do. But I think this guy, if he does get to campus, and right now, I would certainly predict that we do land him. I think we are his leader right now. I think he's going to be a star. I think he's going to be an absolute star for Georgia. In fact, I think he's got first-round NFL draft pick potential. You never know how things pan out, injuries, and how guys work. But everything I know about this kid, you see about this kid, is that he works hard, man. He's a two-sport athlete. He's a big-time basketball player for North Dakota's basketball program. And I think they've won a couple state championships. He's really good there. He's just an awesome athlete. And usually when you have a guy that plays multiple sports like that, you don't play multiple sports like that and play them both at a high level if you don't have a strong work ethic. Usually doesn't really work like that. So, again, seeing this guy play full games, I can just tell you guys with 100% confidence, he is a ridiculous athlete. Yes, he can continue to improve as a technician. I have no doubt that will happen with the kind of young man he is and everything you hear about this guy behind the scenes. Yeah, he can grow, but oh my, the tools that this dude has to work with, athletically speaking, are off the charts. And I think he's going to be a big-time impact player for Georgia. Very little doubt in my mind if we do end up landing him. But that's the thing, guys. Look, we're not going to land all these guys. We're not. If it was 2018, back when we signed that number one recruiting class, the first number one recruiting class in the Kirby Smart era, yeah, maybe we could have landed all these guys because other teams weren't like legally paying people, right? You could just stack player on top of player on top of player, depth on top of depth on top of depth. And it didn't seem to matter because all these guys, they're 5 stars, they're high 4 stars. They think they're great. They've been told they're great their entire lives. So they think, you know what, yeah, you might have this guy on campus, but I'm better than him. I'll come in and beat him out. It doesn't work like that anymore, right? NIL, collectives, it's all changed the game. So we're not going to land all of those guys. That I can tell you with 100% confidence. Because at some point you have to make business decisions, right? In this day and age of college football, that factors into things. But what do we know? What do we know about this recruiting class? Well, we know that Georgia has already landed the number one quarterback in the country. We know that Georgia is on the verge. I'm very confident in saying this. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Crazy things happen. But Georgia is on the verge of landing the number one offensive tackle in the country, who also happens to be the number one overall player in the country. I believe strongly that Georgia will land at least one of 2 5-star tight ends to go on top of Lincoln Keys, who's already another really talented tight end that we already have in this recruiting class in the fold right now. I believe that Georgia is likely to add an edge rusher in Kamari Brooks with elite athleticism and elite physicality. His physicality just as impressive as his athleticism is, who is a guy that I think has first-round NFL draft potential. I believe that Georgia will likely add a 5-star running back, whether that's Derek Cooper or Savion Hyder. I believe, as of right now, things are always subject to change in recruiting. That's the thing with recruiting. It can always change. But as of right now, I believe that we will land at least one of those 2 guys. And we could, with Tyler Atkinson, very easily land the number 1 inside linebacker in the country for the 3rd consecutive cycle, following Justin Williams in 2024 and Zayden Walker in the 2025 class. And that will set the foundation for another national championship window for the Georgia Bulldogs. And it's just yet another reason why the Georgia Bulldogs aren't going anywhere anytime soon. If you don't believe me, let me just ask you this. What happened the last time Georgia had a first-round draft pick at left tackle, a first-round inside linebacker, a first-round edge rusher, and multiple future starting NFL running backs back in, 2021? Oh, yeah, we won the national championship. And that was without the benefit of having the number 1 quarterback in the country on your roster. Don't get me wrong, guys. Stetson Bennett was freaking awesome. I'm a huge Stetson guy. Love Stetson. As far as I'm concerned, the best quarterback in Georgia history based on what this guy did. But we can also say with a straight face at the same time, he didn't have anywhere near the physical tools that Jared Curtis has to work with. Both things can be true. Stetson can be awesome and also not have the physical tools that Jared Curtis has. Who knows if Jared Curtis will turn out to be as successful as Stetson Bennett? Who knows? But physically speaking, he's got the goods. So buckle up, boys and girls. Georgia football recruiting is about to go off, and we'll be here covering it every step of the way for you guys all summer long. So again, if you haven't already and you're a diehard Georgia fan, what are you waiting for, guys? You know you want this kind of content. You know this is what you're into. So go ahead, subscribe right now so you get all the notifications. It hits you as soon as it goes live. You don't miss any of our content all summer long. We cover recruiting, we covering team stuff. So subscribe, like, comment, get that conversation started. If you think I'm crazy, if you think Georgia has no chance to land some of these guys, let me know. If you agree with me, let me know. I love to hear from all you guys out there. I do my very best to respond to all those comments that I get. So thank you guys. Always appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your day to check out our podcast. So make sure you also check out full episodes of the show wherever you get your podcast. But for now, I'm Tyler. I'm out of here. And as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.